Welcome to the Create Smarter podcast, where we discuss the latest topics, trends, and creative projects in the video space that are capturing our attention. On today's episode, we're going to discuss what trends we expect to take off in 2023, and I am joined by the wonderful McCreek, or Marissa, as she's actually formerly known, but in the hallways you hear as McCreek in Brooklyn. How you two doing today?
Great. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good.
A little hot. I'm sure both of us are
warm.
going to be sweating. Just real action podcasts that we're bringing to the network.
We're all heated. These trends have got us heated. Yeah, ready.
Marty's sweating. Let's dive in.
So let's dive in. Like you said, it's January 2023. Let's talk about trends. I know we're dating ourselves, but what I was recently reading was a podcast from Social Sprout. It's a good blog. It was titled What's Next? Expert Predictions on the Future of Social Media for 2023. And the main thing they talked about was touching grass. What is touching grass? You are the youth to my elder millennial. Explain to me touching grass.
Touching grass, essentially, I first saw this term on TikTok, actually, in the comment sections, and it's basically you'll say it to somebody who's chronically online. In other words, get a life, go outside and get off your phone, do something else. I think that's the best way to describe it.
I've actually never heard this term until today, so I can't even help you.
Kind of like a dig at someone where you're okay, they have a hot take or something. It's just get a life, go touch grass, get outside, do something other than what you're doing right now. You know?
Right. So it's when you're on TikTok, Twitter, and someone's just constantly there's no reference to what they're doing because they are just living on Twitter. You're go touch grass because I can't live 24/7 on this internet platform for no dang reason. And that's sort of what I was seeing in the trends. I mean, that's kind of the interesting things. A lot of it is people are getting exhausted. I mean, for you two, especially it being your Gen Zers, right? We're going to go a little bit into that type of thing, but talk to me a little bit, Marissa, about kind of your internet consumption habits and kind of what you feel about just social media in general right now.
Yeah, it's interesting too because obviously I manage our social media, so I'm on my phone a lot more than I should be. But I think that would be true whether or not I was managing our social media, unfortunately. I mostly live on Instagram. Twitter is becoming, all sorts of chaos, so trying not to spend too much time on there. But I know we've been talking about Be Real too, and how big that's become. So I'm definitely on that as well, and kind of trying to capture what's happening in day-to-day life, more real, I guess.
And I think that's it almost is going to transition, but I mean, quickly, Brooklyn, what's your kind of habits? What do you use? What's the platform you kind of enjoy the most when it comes to social media?
So I used to use Instagram and stuff a lot more. I don't really post on Instagram anymore, but I did use Be Real for a bit too, just because I thought it was a super interesting concept, to see what your friends are doing in the moment. But it has kind of changed from the original point of the app, actually. But I do use Twitter and TikTok a lot, whether it's just for entertainment purposes or learning stuff. But I never thought I would learn as much as I have on TikTok as I do now. I feel I've consumed so much information at this point, but I use those two the most, I'd say, especially TikTok.
Yeah, I'm an Instagram Reels person instead of TikTok, but that's the same for me. I'm learning,
right.
I find recipes on Instagram, and I never thought I'd be cooking based on
and it's
things
the
I saw there.
algorithm too. You know what I mean? It kind of speaks to what your habits are as well, and what you're liking, which I also like, whether it be the Reels or even on TikTok. So it's kind of the same with that type of thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, great job on really taking our trend talk somewhere where I didn't plan on at all. But yeah, I mean, it's actually interesting. I was reading something about it's becoming more and more of a research. More and more people are using TikTok to research stuff. And how do you do that? Explain that to me a little bit, because from my understanding, TikTok's straight up an algorithm. Right? That's the one thing that's really nice about it. It's not feeding you stuff because it's here's what your follows are and there's a paid advert. It's kind of hey, I kind of found this interesting. Right now I'm getting a lot of cryptid stuff on my TikTok, but it's showing me UFOs randomly. I have no idea why I am talking about this, but
you're exposing yourself here.
Right, but I stumbled upon that, right? How do you use it for research purposes?
I guess so. I will never understand necessarily how the algorithm works, but for research purposes, if something comes up that I'm interested in, and sometimes I don't know how, sometimes it's I'll search something, and then right after I search it, my For You page or something like that will be filled with similar things. Or if I click on an account one time, for the next 15 videos down, I'm going to see either that same account or things that are exactly the same. So if I'm interested in something and I'll click on it, like at this point I kind of know, I'm like, oh, that's interesting from this account. I'm going to purposely go out of my way to look at this account. So now my For You page is going to be filtered with similar things like that.
Right.
Just so it can like kind of speak to whatever niche that may be.
And then with Reels, is it the same? Because Reels is more following kind of influencers' accounts, and like you kind of have to know. Or am I wrong? Like, can you stumble upon Reels? Because like mine's is starting to show up with stuff, and I'm like, where did this come from? I don't follow you.
Yeah, it's kind of the same thing. Like I think it's just like TikTok, just a little bit later. It's a little bit more delayed.
Yeah.
Algorithm still definitely applies there. I actually don't I don't follow any influencers, but the same people keep popping up for me because it knows like maybe I'll click on their account or like I'll watch one of their videos or something. So for me it's mostly like recipes or like unfortunately online shopping, like you know, stuff like that. But like if I go visit someone's page or if I like, you know, keep looking at the same account or something, it'll give me that kind of content. Or like I'll be stuck in a loop. Like the other day I was watching like a football mic'd up Instagram video came up and I watched it and I watched it in full, and so Instagram instantly knew, oh, she wants this content, and for like the next hour I was like just scrolling, didn't even click on any accounts, and I was getting that content served to me. So it still knows, like even if I hover and watch like what content I want.
And I think you guys inadvertently actually kind of went into that first trend, which is the let's be real. Authenticity really does matter. I mean, as we kind of have seen, touching grass and stuff like that, like the average American, this was a fun stat, I'm not sure if you two saw, the average American is spending over 7 hours a day looking at their screens. Like right now, like that's in like we're high up. Like it's 6 hours worldwide. We're at 7 hours. They're saying pandemic fatigue, internet fatigue is becoming a real thing. But something you both just kind of inadvertently stumbled upon is that idea of like, you got to be authentic to what you're creating and stuff. I mean, you followed Brooklyn someone because you're like, hey, their topic was interesting to me. It wasn't they were trying to game the system like a Twitter or like a YouTube and stuff like that. They're truly being authentic to this type of topic that they want to talk about because you guys are using it for research purposes. I mean, we can keep talking about that, but talk to me, let's transition a little bit into the Be Real, right? Because this is sort of where people are hearing it from of like, what do you mean authenticity matters? Well, 2022, Be Real was the app of like 2022. So explain to me a little bit. I know you and I were talking Marissa, we were talking pre-recording of this because thanks to Tyler, Brooklyn, it took you a little bit longer to get to us.
And we were like, no, we have to wait. We have to see this conversation.
But explain Be Real to me, right? Explain like you're talking to your dad or someone. What the heck is Be Real?
Yeah, so essentially it gives you a notification every day that says, hey, it's time to be real. You have 2 minutes. So it counts down from 2 minutes as soon as you open that notification, and you have to take a picture with your front camera and your back camera and then post it to whoever your friends list is. And it's very similar to like any other social app and who you're following, but this one is a little bit more of like your close friends, I would say. So you kind of are selective that way. And then, you know, people don't always post in those 2 minutes, so you can post whenever, and it'll give people notifications like, oh, if I post like 2 hours late, it'll say Marissa posted late, but I can't see anybody else's posts until I post. So the point is to capture what you're doing in, you know, a less fake way than like an Instagram where you're just posting like your best photos from like the past month or whatever it is.
Right.
So it's supposed to be just like you in your everyday life, whatever you're doing in the moment that the app gives you the notification. But like Brooklyn said, it's kind of moved from that and become a little less real. We call it being fake.
Yeah.
Wait, so what happened?
So when I originally got the app, like I kind of had it and a lot of my friends didn't. So I was like, oh, you guys should try this app. And a lot of them were like, like, I don't know. So, you know, I was kind of like at the beginning of using the app, and I, you know, did exactly that. Like the second it was like post, I was like, okay, I'll post no matter what I was doing. And I feel like I've had it, I don't know how long I've had it at this point, but it's gotten to the point where so many people now that like you realize like, oh, I can still post late. It doesn't matter. I don't have to do it in 2 minutes unless I'm like committed. And in the beginning, it's fun to do it in that 2 minutes. But I feel like so many people have gotten to the point, or, you know, some people that I know at least have gotten to the point where you wait until you're actually doing something that's going to look interesting in your Be Real rather than sitting at your desk or sitting in bed or doing something like that. So a lot of people have kind of like worked their way around it where it's like, I've even been with friends where it's like, they were doing nothing all day and we're all together, like, oh, now I'm going to take my Be Real.
Yeah, 100%.
So they wait
Yeah.
until they're doing something to make it a little bit more interesting, which isn't the point of the app. So it's backfired a little bit. It's not as real as it used to be and still should be. But
It's almost like the
don't use
highlight
it,
of your
yeah.
day or something. Like
Yeah.
now that's what it's
It's
become.
like, oh, I'm doing something now, or it's after work hours or something like that. Now let me show people what I'm doing, even though, one, a lot of the people don't really care what you're doing. It's just a friend type of thing, like, oh,
Right.
interesting, but
Do you comment? Like, is it
Mm-hmm.
okay? So it's like, hey, if we were to do Be Real right now, you guys did it, and your friends would be like, oh, cool, you're recording a podcast. Like, they could do something on that app and talk back and forth.
The people that are your friends can comment and like react.
Right.
Yeah,
like
like
you
with
can
their
like
face.
yeah, you can react with like a facial expression.
You can react with your face. It's such
So,
a
like,
novel
you just-
concept.
you just like take a picture and then it just shows up in this like little circle thing, and it's
Okay.
a bunch of other people can just like reply and without saying words. It's
Yeah.
literally just your face. It's interesting. I
Or
don't
you
know how
can
to
add a
describe that,
caption
but-
to it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But it's so interesting. Like the blog I'm reading off of, right? They're saying, well, Be Real is showing the authenticity matters. But like you're saying, like it
did.
really it matters because,
Mm-hmm.
like as you guys are saying, both of y'all. And I'm sorry for saying you guys. It's a Southern thing. I apologize for all of that. But it does matter. You have to be real in the sense of like, hey, I know you just waited until you had something interesting. Like this wasn't like actually what mattered. And I think for my purposes, right, taking it back, or our purposes really in just the workspace and stuff, I think it's something we do see with others, like our projects and stuff. I know one of the ones today, we're recording a day when we were actually doing a webinar all about Who's Your Maury and stuff. But like genuine stories really matter. I think it's something we're seeing too with other clients that are coming out and having their people talk. It's not a, hey, let's create this overview of our company and how great we are, but like I'm seeing that kind of in the business side, which is sort of interesting as well. But it's fascinating to me to hear how quickly, like, you have to be right. You have to be right. You have to be authentic to who you are, because like you're saying, like, if the app becomes inauthentic, I hate it. If the user becomes inauthentic, it's like, I don't care about this. I'm not gonna, like, if you just game this system on TikTok, I don't care about seeing you and stuff like that. I'm not going to try to follow you further and really assist you in that type of thing. Sorry. It's very interesting that we stumbled upon this.
Interesting too, just like on a complete, like a side note in terms of Be Real, is that it's not all just for your friends. There's a discover page where it's anybody in the world, and I don't know how it works. I think it's a setting or something. You can see their Be Real too. So
I didn't
there's
even know
people
that.
from other countries, so I've come across it after. You obviously have to post yours first, but I've posted mine and I've seen like on like an explore page almost, like people from like Spain or, you know, like Brazil, like different places. I've seen like their Be Reals, and sometimes it's a joke. I'll reply to them like with my face because I just think it's funny until it's not. And then that's an interesting part too, where it seems like it's just for friends, but it's everybody too, which
Right.
is really interesting.
I
And it's
didn't even
like,
know
what-
that. That's
yeah. Mhm.
interesting.
Yeah, I thought it was supposed to only be people you knew. That's
Yeah.
very, very interesting. Actually, it sort of takes us to that second trend, right? Which is
Yeah.
silent video. Silent video closed captions are kind of a big rise. And here's a fun stat I found for you two. I don't know. I'm just giving you like, here's old man provides stats
for
about
it.
the internet. But
Old man Kyle.
92% of users watch a video with sound off while watching it on their phone. But it makes a ton of sense. Like you guys, like both of y'all just said, you use your face, like you're interacting, but at the same point, when you're watching your phone, 7 hours means you aren't doing it where you're in an area where you can listen to sound full and stuff like that. Like how often are you watching? I mean, for me, I know like I probably don't use TikTok as much because you kind of got to hear that stuff. But like, are you experiencing that, Marissa, with like sound off on everything?
Yeah, I feel like a lot, no, maybe not a lot of the times, but like sometimes I'm in public when I'm just like scrolling through my phone. So you can't always click on a video and listen to it, but it looks intriguing and it captures your attention. And sometimes I don't care enough to like go back later when I'm like, you know, I can actually listen to it. So I'm like, yeah, I'm going to watch it now. So I know like Instagram has like a built-in captions, like a transcription feature.
Right.
So it'll give you like live captions that way. So I like when videos have that, because sometimes I'll scroll through Instagram Reels in public, or like, you know, sitting with other people and like they don't want to hear my volume full, or like I don't have my AirPods on me all the time. I don't know. So I usually just kind of watch what's going on. So it's helpful to have those captions on there, so you don't have to like actually sit and listen to every video.
Yeah, I totally understand. Like I know like TikTok has that where like they now kind of more or less put captions on everything, which is really nice. But like at the same point, you're still like, oh, geez, turn off the sound. Like, why are you putting this?
Yeah.
But I think like you said, it's one of those like in public, you don't want to. it's almost rude. I know there's plenty of people who like straight up listen, sound full, don't give a crap
It's the
about
same
anyone
as
else.
FaceTiming somebody in
Right.
public.
Right,
yeah,
right.
like talking on the phone on
Yeah.
speaker in like
Yeah,
a
it's the
store. And you're
same
like,
as
why?
that,
Yeah.
yeah.
So you don't want to do that.
But it's interesting. I mean, if we take it back to kind of our work and our day to day in Brooklyn, this is something that like you kind of experience or you're kind of working with right now with like a podcast series that we do for a client. Like they are doing silent. Like there is sound in it, but it's a lot of captions. I mean, how do you do that? How do you kind of take that? Talk me through the kind of that process. I know this is a little side off the trends, but I think it's something interesting that audience, if they, especially, hey, this is a trend coming up, you got to go silent. How do you kind of take audio and make it into a caption very quickly?
Well, you can actually. Do you want me to get into like the technical part?
Yeah,
Like
let's
Premiere
go a little-
Pro?
Yeah.
Do it.
Yeah. So what you can do, and like basically we do this, including a waveform with it. So it's basically just like the looks of it. But in terms of adding the actual captions, like you transcribe like your selected sequence, whoever's saying what, and it'll generate like pretty much like automated captions for you.
Right.
And then that's just in terms of like you have to kind of just go back and do it yourself, like punctuation, grammar, things like that it didn't pick up. That say like there was a word that somebody was like kind of, I don't know, mumbling or something like that. Sometimes it won't always pick it up. So you have to kind of go back and do it manually, make sure everything's okay and stuff like that. But a quick and easy way to do it in Premiere Pro is just, under the text, and then you transcribe, and then you create captions, and then boom, and then you can merge, split, do whatever you want to do. And it's super easy way rather than having to manually do it yourself and write every single thing out, which could be time consuming.
And that's like, it's, you like say it's a trend coming up, but then you see some of the tools in the AI. You're like, oh yeah, no wonder this is a trend. It's becoming easier and easier. Like we
Right.
use Premiere. That's kind of we're Adobe Creative Suite house. That's what we kind of love. But like you're saying, it's a very simple. You're clicking something. It's going to auto transcribe that. Then it can immediately convert. I mean, it's very interesting. And before this, were you creating stuff without silent? Like how often were you creating kind of silent video or silent like stuff without sound? Is that something you were kind of doing in college, or were there even conversations about that?
I guess I didn't really think about the captioning piece of it until I came to work here. And we work with a lot of higher ed clients, and they are requiring captions for accessibility reasons. So now my brain is like programmed to think that way, because before I was like, oh, it's a video, you're going to watch it and listen to it, obviously. But I wasn't really doing much of that before. And now it's easy, but it's also like required for a lot of the work that we do, at least.
Yeah, totally. And now the last trend that I want to talk about, and this is something that I think has always kind of been out there for a while, but it's the short video, that user-generated content. I mean, it's kind of back to you, Brooklyn, with the whole idea that you're doing these caption videos, but it's also very short, right? Because you're taking it from a podcast that's as long as 45 to 30 minutes long.
Right.
I don't know why I started with 45 and then went to 30.
Yeah,
But it's somewhat of a long form content. However, when you're on social media, especially, it's becoming shorter and shorter and shorter. As good as long form can be, long form's great in the right channel, right? So talk about like kind of what you're doing to kind of chop that up. How do you kind of keep it shorter? And how, I mean, from your side too, Marissa, to kind of piggyback on it, what type of reaction do you see? I mean, as the social media manager for us, are you seeing more reaction and more interaction with shorter content than like our long form, even though we do well produced long form content? What are we seeing kind of with this trend?
Well, for one, to just go back to, like on a really quick note, is I feel like if you want to get, the attention of your audience, you want to go with something shorter and something that is hitting the main point and something that is interesting. Hence, like, the sound bite. Like, it's something that's going to engage you to want to listen to the whole thing. So you want to pick the most important part. And again, like even on like TikTok, they've added now a 10-minute feature. Nobody's going to watch like a 10-minute video. 3 minutes, that's pushing it.
Yeah.
But before, like, I don't know, like, so you want to, in terms of like the podcast and stuff like that, like what we're either assigned or like figure out is whether it be the guest or the host, like whoever it is, like what is the most captivating couple sentences you're saying? And not only like, are you going to like, choose that part of like the video or the podcast or whatever, like adding those captions to it is like even more like, it's gonna grab your attention even more, because it's like, okay, not only like am I able to like read this and know exactly what you're saying, like I'm also intrigued at just this small portion. So it's kind of just like a little like teaser where it's just like, all right, like I want to know a little bit more. So the engagement will be up, I think, in that sense too.
Yeah, and that's what, like, you were talking about. We did a webinar today. So, like, my first steps are going to be going through the webinar and picking out topics of all the things. And then I'll send out emails to people, like clients and stuff like that, of like to people that are going to care about very specific things. People that we work with in events are going to care about this one specific point. Like Brooklyn said, it's highlighting the most important pieces, and that's going to be different for everybody. But it's a good way to get your foot in the door and say, hey, here's one small piece of content. If this interests you, go watch the full thing.
Right.
It's easier to get people's attention that way. And I notice it on social media. People will kind of engage with their content more if it's shorter, and you play around with different ways to present that content. Sometimes I'll just clip out the video. Sometimes it'll be like a waveform graphic like we do for our clients as well. I'll make them for us. So you can play around with ways to present the short form stuff, and then hopefully get people to engage with your longer form content.
And for instance, think of a movie trailer. That's the whole point of a movie trailer, is to pick out, without giving things away, the most either important or like engaging or like interesting things that's going to grab your attention. If this looks interesting to you and all these little clips combined, go watch the movie. It's like kind of like the same as that, where you take almost kind of like what they do and you put it in, whether it be a podcast, a video, a webinar, anything like that.
Yeah.
So
And
it's a good connection to that too.
I think it's easier to get people to share that kind of content as well when it's shorter. So like we had Lindsay on our webinar today. It's going to be easy for her to share a short piece of content. It's not like she's sharing the whole hour-long webinar, but it's a good way to get in front of other people's audiences as well, because it's, if you have a short video that you post, it's going to be easier to say, oh, like, I'm not going to be asking my audience to sit here and watch this whole thing. It's just going to be easier to share.
Well, it's hard to provide the context too, right? Like, it's very easy to provide context for a minute-long video. Like, hey, I did this quick webinar, we talked about this type of thing. Here's a cool clip of me talking about this type of thing, versus here's 10 minutes of me diving into Pythagorean theorem about, no one would ever be doing that, but it's that, like, it's very easy to provide context to your followers and stuff like that. And like, it's kind of funny, like you talk, Brooklyn, about the idea of like short, sound off, and authentic, right? Like those trends all blend together to exactly what you're talking about. It's like you're putting the best content out there, but it can't be something that's not authentic to what else is there, because if they do come and they're like, wait a second, this trailer showed like 20 things that this movie is a horror movie and you're showing me a comedy, like that's where people are like, nah, screw this, get out of there. And I think what we're hearing in as we continue to experience this, is you have to be authentic. As much as you can game the system with the stuff like short, no sound, closed captions, if you aren't doing something that's real, people are immediately going to tune you out, and it's hard to get them back to you, because you're like, oh, it's fake. I like just hearing you talk about Be Real, Brooklyn, is very interesting to me for something that you're like, yeah, got fake. And like both of you, like, immediately were able to mind meld. They're like, oh, yeah, no, it's because now everyone just takes a photo whenever it's convenient for them, and it's not about doing it in the time.
Yeah, and I've even, I don't know if you've noticed, like I've stopped using Be Real. I haven't posted on Be Real in a really, really long time.
I've never done it because I'm like, too fake. I want to be real.
You're too
See?
fake.
You know what? But yeah, I've just gotten to the point where I'm just kind of like, and I've caught myself doing the same thing, where I would post when I'm just like, all right, I'll make myself look a little bit more interesting.
Oh, I 100%
laying
do
in
that.
my
Like,
bed.
I'm definitely, I definitely have some B-reels where I'm just like in bed, but sometimes I'm like, oh, I know I'll like be doing this thing later tonight. I'll wait.
Right.
So.
Well, it's interesting too. The other point you brought up, Marissa, about the idea of sharing and stuff like that, and like it's something. This is sort of that last point. I think it's one of those. We're talking about what you're creating internally, but I mean, user-generated content, right? Brands really want others out there to be their cheerleaders, right? Talk about how awesome they are and stuff like that. And I think one of the more eye-opening projects that we did in 2022 for me, especially hearing how much it was shared and stuff, was when you, Brooklyn, went to Tufts University and we're doing stuff with 360 booth. And that's a very simple, it's a cool camera movement, right? But it's not groundbreaking or anything. It's just a camera goes around you in 360 motion. You've seen it on stuff like the Emmys and all that, but you've also seen it at your cousin's wedding at this point. So it's nothing crazy, but it's very short. It's kind of cool. It's you get to kind of have fun with it. But we saw a ton of sharing and stuff for that.
So much, because the reason for that is because because obviously it's connected to a phone and there's like an app and whatnot, but because you can share it in 5 seconds. You can post it right to your Instagram, like use whatever hashtag, like, and that was like the nice part about it. And like, yes, it's short. Yes, it's like pretty interesting, depending on what you have behind you and stuff
Right.
like that. But it's such a quick way that you can just like immediately upload, and then everyone's like, well, I haven't done that. I've seen it. I haven't done it, so I want to do it, or I want to share it, or something like that, because it also looks cool. But yeah, that was like the big part of it. Is just it was so rapid. Everyone sharing, just because you could do it right then and there, which was nice.
I know, I was trying to go on Instagram and kind of share the stuff as it was coming out from Tufts, and I was like, oh my god, there's so many of these that got
especially
posted.
under that hashtag. Like, it would
Yeah,
just keep
exactly.
going.
And people are going to share it because it's themselves.
But
too.
you think about it too. It's like, hey, you could have gone and followed the Tufts racing team, right? You could have done this amazing video where you're capturing them and all that type of stuff. And that would have taken a half day to be able to capture that, shoot it, edit it. Probably would have taken about a month until you really, not a month, but I'm exaggerating. But
There's a timeline.
there's
Yeah.
a lot of
It's-
time.
Yeah.
And that you just got to hope that that team or that group is so influential and their reach is awesome versus the half a day you gave where you had about 20 different groups that had a ton of reach to be able to come in there, spend 5 minutes, and then walk away immediately with something. I mean, it is something to think about when it comes to user-generated content, especially if you're a brand or an event. I mean, I know it's stuff like you've gone to a couple of big conferences, Marissa. I'm making eye contact with you. I understand the audience is probably like, you're saying you, and you need to point to who?
Me.
Marissa.
I'll
But
raise my hand.
it's something that I think in 2023 to take in, right? From what I'm hearing from both of you, it's like short. It's got to be like at the end of the day, people got to go touch grass, right? So you can't sit there and be doing these long, loud videos that require so much context if you really want to connect with a digital audience in social media in 2023, because people are tired of being on their phones. They are trying to connect less to the internet, and they're trying to be more authentic with when they do connect with the internet.
Yeah, I think one more example I want to bring up with Tufts, because they're really good at doing user-generated content, not just with 360 videos, but they do day-in-the-life blogs for students, and I think those do really well, and we always get really positive feedback from that, and that is like one of the most real pieces of content you can make, because it's just a vlog. We essentially send a camera to a Tufts student, and they'll take us through their day in the life, their week in the life, whatever it may be, and they kind of just record what's happening, like, oh, this is me making dinner, like I'm going to football practice or whatever, and that's a very firsthand experience of being a student, and people are going to share that too, because it's like, oh, like I'm friends with this person, or this is me, and like they're really good about doing that kind of content.
Personal too.
Yeah.
Sometimes, like, again, with the authenticity thing, like, vlogs are, I think, one of the most personal forms of media you can make.
Mhm.
Like, you don't have to really edit that much. Like, you don't have to put on a front or a face or anything like that. You're literally just recording yourself doing what you'd normally do in any other day.
Right.
And that's what people are, like, so drawn to, with the fact that it's authentic, it's real, and I feel more connected to you because that's how you're like, even
Right.
though, like, sometimes the camera can make people nervous and whatnot, but, like, you're just going about your day, and I respect that, and like I feel more, it feels more personal.
I've edited a couple of these videos for Tufts, and I feel like these people are my friends, and they have no idea who I
Exactly.
am, but like I know who they are, and like I've spent
Now
a lot
I
of
know
time
what
watching
you
their
do.
stuff. Yeah, I
Right.
know
Yeah.
what you do in your life.
Yeah.
Like that's we're friends now.
It's always the fun thing of a video editor when you get to meet the person. You're like, I've been watching you for hours at
Okay,
this
you're, like,
point.
famous. I know who you are. Yeah.
You're like, what? You're like,
Like, no,
oh,
not.
sorry, I found you enjoy. The two of you, this is an awesome podcast. I really appreciate it. Users watching, people listening, how can they get in contact with you? What's the best location? Probably LinkedIn for both of you, or
Yeah, LinkedIn, and then emails are easy. Marissa
Yeah.
at 5 Tool Productions, and
Brooklyn at 5 Tool Productions.
reach out to us. Find us on LinkedIn.
that
email
is
us.
indeed where Brooklyn be at.
Somebody at her email.
Well, I'm Kyle McNaught. Thanks for watching the Create Smart podcast, and hopefully you subscribe, like anything you can, right? YouTube, podcast, where else should they be subscribing to us, Marissa? Hit them with it.
Oh my God, Instagram, we got LinkedIn, we got Facebook, Twitter, YouTube.
Not Be Real. Don't be following Brooklyn and I Be Real. We ain't
Don't
there
do it.
anymore.
You'll
No.
get nothing from
No
me.
more.
Well, thanks for watching and listening. Bye.